What if I were to tell you that a small group of government contractors were hired by government officials to frame the Trump campaign, set him up for the Russia collusion investigation, provided witnesses for the impeachment hearings, and provided administrative support services to the Department of Justice during the Mueller investigation? And what if it just so happened that this same group of contractors are behind the fake news in mainstream media, influence operations on social media, and the civil unrest nationwide pushing the defund the police movement? The Obamagate scandal only scratches the surface.
You mentioned shock value. That is shocking what the Russians did. I agree, we need to stop it.
I know that now based on the Horowitz report.
I'm not saying that you lied to the court. I'm saying you signed something that was a lie and you didn't know it.
Talk about a cover story. What really happened is much more alarming. Both parties are equally guilty of covering up what should turn out to be an even bigger scandal, Shadowgate. The tactical and operational role the shadow government played behind the scenes, carrying out the coup against President Trump. We're going to be looking behind the puppets at who the real puppet master string pullers are. The material presented in this documentary should concern people of all political affiliations. This is about real players, people whose names never come up but should. Career politicians are definitely part of the Beltway swamp, even aspects of the deep state, but they are not the shadow government. The shadow government consists of government contractors, defense, intelligence, security, and so on. Our government mostly consists of front-facing desk jockeys that are compartmentalized in cubicles. They're to cover up for the fact that most of the real work is outsourced to contractors, aka the military-industrial complex. That way, what the public sees through FOIA requests, investigations, congressional hearings, or otherwise, is as clean as a whistle. All the dirty work is kept private, with contractors in clandestine networks. These contractors have used their connections, power, and influence to create an unprecedented international criminal enterprise where blackmail is traded and people's personal data is gold. Two whistleblowers, Tory and Patrick Berge, who both worked extensively within the shadow government as contractors, have come forward with revelations that may be part of the biggest whistleblowing event to date.
I'm one of thousands faceless, patriotic Americans that work within the shadows and had been doing that for a very long time. People that worked for John Brennan approached me while I was in my specialist training while I was in the Navy. When I was recruited, it was for electronic warfare. Then I ended up in information warfare, and ironically, the base that I first went to for electronic warfare is now information warfare.
My job for a company called Dynology, which was owned by Obama's National Security Advisor, General James Jones, and I answered directly to his son. I worked for them for about 8 years, from like 2007 to 2010. My focus was primarily in the development on a couple different contracts for the Department of Defense for the development of the capabilities for interactive internet activities, being something that helps support CNO, which is computer network operations, hacking and different things like that, and information operations, which would be your actual influence operations, right? It's a supporting application that really, it's kind of like a Microsoft project, right? Which allows you to manage large projects, like enterprise level projects, but instead of like managing the building of the construction of a 14-story building, it's managing the most, malevolent operations that you could imagine.
I was a contractor for various intelligence agencies that were privately created. So they were private contracting agencies. because unlike what most people think, our intelligence doesn't stay within our borders or within federal buildings.
The ShadowNet was the commercial version of an IIA weapon, IIA being Interactive Internet Activities. That's the military nomenclature for what basically you've heard just being described for the last 3 or 4 years with all the fake news and the fake news journalists and fake stories, fake dossier. All these things are attributes and characteristics of IIA, which is social media psychological warfare. We began that really in 2007, when right after the policy guidelines first came out. We were on one of the first contracts with the DoD that I'm aware of, trying to help the Force Psychological Operations Group understand how to go from dropping flyers from planes to a more micro-targeted social media psychological warfare application where you could select an individual target or a group target or an entire country if you wanted to.
What I did was something called localization, or L10N. So a localization strategy is you find a group of people, that could be a whole country, a city, a certain religious group, 6-block radius like Chaz, and you kind of try to get in their mind. You have to understand how they eat, how they walk, how they talk, what they like, what pushes their buttons, what drives them nuts, what upsets them, what makes them happy. And then you use that to your advantage to push whatever ideology or product or direction you want them to go. Marrying together cultural appropriation, language, nuances of the demographic that you are targeting or the nation you are targeting. It pries into your demographic, your world. So if I want to blackmail you and put you under my thumb, not only will I know everything, but I will know your deepest, darkest fears. I will know people I can get in contact to find out more about you. Maybe you had like an old hockey injury. So if I wanted to attack you, I'd know where to hit you.
You understand enough about someone and you can hack their shadow, right? You can use their fears. You can use their anxieties. Like, sound anything like pandemics that you recognize here?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So you can use those things to help reflexively control or influence a target, an individual, or whoever it is, right? Or a group of people, or an entire election, an entire country.
What Patrick Berge created was a program that was based off of the strategies that we used in person. It was a psychological operation, but that crunches data with the use of psychological operations. So you can predict how your target will respond.
You know, I spent like 7 years overseas, right? Several years, a couple of those years were specifically related to IIA. So I understood certain things.
When we hijacked the Afghan elections, how did we do that? We had to understand how the Afghanis think. We had to go to the areas that were anti-Taliban because the Taliban political group was now more militant than it was political. We used that to our advantage and formulated a plan where we would sway their thoughts to believe that XYZ candidate is the way to go, because then you won't get robbed and we'll tame the Taliban. But we had to do it in their way. So he created an algorithm that does that for you.
When we were largely doing this, it was done by analysts. Now this is more done automated through artificial intelligence, which is just a common iteration of the program or application development process. The database component ends up allowing you to build behavioral profiles on individual targets, right? And through those behavioral profiles, you can develop or implement reflexive control, which allows you to understand with enough information about someone, you can predictively determine how they're going to react.
I was really good at what I did. Really good, and I can still do it too. I'm not doing it now though.
Well, don't be doing that,
I
Tori.
wouldn't know if I was too. But I helped them train algorithms with the strategies that I had created all these years.
They had asked us to bring the application to a classified network. But Jim sent him a bogus, just a made-up, ridiculous bid to actually do that, because if it went on a classified network, we couldn't turn around and sell it commercially. We went on after that to another contract in Tampa, took everything with us. Force Psychological Operations Group had no idea that we were going to be taking their years' worth of work that they paid us to do, the taxpayers paid us to do, and we kept the intellectual property rights to it and remarketed it, branded it commercially as the Shadow. So I come back here and I see these guys back here in America have just been having a field day utilizing the technology that we've been developing to alter the outcomes of our elections in America.
This technology was so successful, they couldn't resist the temptation to not use it commercially and have the power to affect outcomes of elections at home. The commercial and black market value of such a technology is incalculable.
This is the Mobile Mega ShadowNet Mobile. My laptop sits in here, and then I got 2 4K capture cards. I can do BTC, and this charges all the camera equipment. So while I'm riding, I'm told I'm getting as much as 40 amps. These are the same cases that we used to build out our skips, our SC2 IPs, which is a small command and control over IP. And when I was working with JCSE, we would take these cases and build out networks. This is a small command and control over IP. It's just only running on one unclassified network, SIM-enabled Wi-Fi router. And if I get decent cell connection, I can run the multiple cameras, and I can put multiple images in one screen, and I can run all that from my cell phone that I have mounted here.
The group of whistleblowers from the NSA and other classified data collection agencies, referred to as the Global Surveillance Whistleblowers, were used as a vector to legalize what was then illegal dragnet spying on everyone 24/7.
The NSA and its former head, General Hayden, declined to comment for this story.
The FISA Amendment Act of 2008 had Section 702 that permitted the government to spy on citizens with a warrant from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. The NSA data system collects everything through what's called the upstream, where everything is stored for 72 hours, then dumped. However, if one could twin this stream of data, they could privatize it. Imagine what you could do with that. Tori alleges that she worked for John Brennan at the Analysis Corporation and Global Strategies Group. What is the Analysis Corporation?
It is a company that does a lot of things, varied from administrative work to analyses to data collection, biometric collection. I mean, whatever contract they've been awarded by the government, they do. It could be something as simple as janitor duties.
In case you missed the secretary's words upstairs, she reached out to Senator Obama to say that she was sorry that this had happened, that there were these unauthorized accesses to his passport file. One incident this past summer where there was a trainee in the passport office who had an unauthorized access of Senator Clinton's passport file. Now, in the case of Senator McCain, we detected earlier this year one of the same people who accessed Senator Obama's passport file also accessed Senator McCain's passport file. This is the same individual who was disciplined, but at this point in time still remains working with the contractor.
She claims to be the actual person who moved the electronic files at Stanley Inc. and CGI in 2008, which publicly was falsely alleged to be a hack. What can you tell us about the CGI Stanley passport incident?
See, Brennan has a certain MO, okay? When he wants to get something, he pretends there's a hack. So I was asked when I was stateside, hey, would you go by that office and pull all this data from the State Department? And I said, of course I will. I put it on 2 rugged drives. They were like the orange tips, really big, drives. And I put it on there. And then later, it's like, oh, they were hacked. And I'm thinking, I didn't hack anything. I was told to do it. So I just kind of watched what was happening. One person actually committed suicide or something, and the other 2 were found. I'm like, but there was no hack. And that's a going theme. You know that, right?
Wow. If it wasn't a hack, I'm presuming that means you took the information off of their servers and computers.
Correct.
So that information was then missing.
Correct.
What would be the point of that? What were they trying to hide?
Well, if I removed it, that means someone else was there to replace it, right? So I removed the actual information, and then someone goes behind. That's like super switch. I didn't see that until in retrospect, right? Because for me, going to copy a server off of a consulate, computer, State Department, wherever, would be normal. If we had a contract with them, they would tell me what terminal, I'd scan the barcode, make sure that I was at the right computer, and do my job. So I removed data, that means someone else replaced it.
So what is the relationship between Global Strategies Group, Analysis Corporation, and Canadian Global Information?
They all do the same thing. They're the jacks of all trades, except for the fact that Global Strategies Group was actually a hub for all information, in and out, in and out. I mean, all of the directors there were former GCHQ, CIA, NSA, MI6, MI5, German intelligence. You have to wonder, why are all these former heads heading up a consulting firm? And what were they consulting? And they weren't consulting. They were collecting everybody's data and privatizing it.
John Brennan, working within his network of contracting companies such as Stanley, Canadian Global Information, and the Analysis Corporation, helped then Senator Barack Obama get elected using internet influence operations. March 5th, 2013, Brennan gets confirmed as CIA director, dodging controversy over his involvement in the CIA enhanced interrogation scandal. Now tell us about these data bridges to the NSA. Is that legally obtained information?
I mean, that's kind of what Snowden did too.
According to sources closely connected to this subject, under John Brennan's direction, Snowden created a data bridge from the NSA database into private servers controlled by private intelligence and cybersecurity contractors, aka the Analysis Corporation, Global Strategies Group, and Canadian Global Information.
The twinning of streams is duplicating the information in the upstream. That's crazy. To think that another company is copying all emails, texts, phone calls, messages, emojis, Instagrams, tweets, anything you can imagine that's being uploaded that has to go into like the 72-hour holding is suddenly being pushed offshore. That sounds kind of illegal because it is.
June 5th, 2013. Edward Snowden goes public with the NSA program PRISM, revealing the NSA collects internet traffic of all U.S. citizens from major internet and telecom companies through the FISA 702 program. Snowden's actions kicked off, on the federal level, justification for spying on U.S. citizens, including the Senate and Congress, in the name of preventing U.S. citizens with classified or top-secret clearances from being able to repeat Snowden's actions. This opened the door for the creation of ClearForce. July 4th, 2013, CGI and GCHQ launch a defense protection partnership which includes sharing threat intelligence. So these were all private corporations that even had foreigners working in them, and they had access to NSA servers?
Of course they did. I mean, how do you think we found, through facial recognition of the FBI, the Belgian bomber? Why would we have their facial recognition data?
So is this legal, what you're telling me, and why would they do it? Why would they set this up this way?
So sharing our information and our private identifying information, facial recognition, biometrics, outside of the United States for official purposes, like at a consulate, at an embassy, through Secret Service or anything like that, is legal, right? Or through Interpol. But to have a company that houses everybody's data and any private person can buy that data or investigate that data or analyze that data, that's not. And that's exactly what GSG was doing.
Early 2009, John Brennan left government and went to work for a small intelligence contractor here in the Virginia area, suburban Virginia area, just outside of Washington. The company was called the Analysis Corporation. There are subsidiaries of subsidiaries. Some of these companies are spun out, go public, go private again. It's kind of hard to keep track of them.
In just 4 months, GSG, CGI, and other private contractors allegedly had unauthorized access to the entire Five Eyes network, unfiltered, unrestricted, decompartmentalized, outside any government regulation or oversight. Not surprising, the CIA gets caught 1 year later spying on the US Senate. Their excuse? It was their own network they had set up for the Senate to use, so they had authorization.
Would you agree that the CIA's 2014 search of Senate files was improper?
This is the annual threat assessment, is it not? Yes. These were CIA computers at a CIA leased facility. It was a CIA network that was shared between Senate staffers conducting that investigation for your report, as well as CIA personnel.
The reality is those computers, in effect, belonged to the CIA, but they were reserved exclusively for the committee's use.
We accelerated our ability, our, for want of a better word, invasiveness into communications networks in which legitimate targets coexisted with legitimately protected communications.
Obama takes office, and General Jones is being sworn in as National Security Advisor. His son, General Jones' son, copyrights CKMS, Congressional Knowledge Management System. Within a couple months after he leaves office in 2010, Dynology gets a contract for CKMS, the Congressional Knowledge Management System, which basically controls all of the scheduling, the addresses, the documents, everything for the Congress. CKMS is going to give you access to unlimited information. Think about the information you could get from that.
If we look on usspending.gov, we see Dynology was awarded contracts for the Congressional Knowledge Management System. However, one contract stands out, where Dynology was awarded a contract by the Department of Defense that includes a mention of the Congressional Knowledge Management System. A closer look shows that the award description is for CKMS hosting labor, admin, core data. The primary place of performance is Germany, and the North American industry classification description is data processing, hosting, and related services. Even one section stating manufacturing outside the United States, use outside the United States. Let it sink in that these official documents suggest the Congressional Knowledge Management System, outsourced to a private contractor, is hosted, managed, and stored in servers in Germany. This is very disturbing. With the Senate's computer network compromised by John Brennan's CIA and the Congressional Knowledge Management System being hosted, managed, and stored overseas by General Jones's company, the ability for these contractors to eavesdrop on both the House and the Senate is staggering.
When I brought this up back in 2018, shortly after that, Dynology lost the contract that they had had since 2011, 2012 with CKMS, and that contract went to another company, a company that exists as nothing more than a website and a mail drop mile or so from Dynology's Tampa office, controlling the entire congressional's knowledge management.
And if you look at the contracting database, they'll say that, oh, they have an American entity. And it's like, but it's the same CEOs for this Canadian company. I'm so confused. So they even falsify information so they can obfuscate where our federal tax dollars are going. And don't forget, they all share contracts. They all subcontract, co-contract.
Psy Group has the exact same product as Dynology, the ShadowNet, and iSci, right? Yet, the owner of Dynology sits on the board of directors of Psy Group, which in my opinion is kind of like the owner of Coke sitting on the board of directors of Pepsi.
TAC, CGI, and all these LLCs that just keep cycling and cycling, all of them.
The Social Security numbers of 19.7 million Americans subjected to federal background checks as a condition of employment are now in the hands of hackers.
In June 2015, the Office of Personnel Management announced a major data breach. Tell us about the OPM hack.
Okay, so that's another Brennan job. So another hack, supposed hack. And this is to obtain, delete, and obfuscate information. Hillary Clinton was up for the chopping block about her emails right at the State Department. And that was coming up. That was big talk of the town in 2014. Suddenly, the Office of Personnel Management was hacked in December.